Hi there, this is Fahad and in this tutorial you will learn about authentication in the React app using Firebase in the 3 steps. In the first one, we're going to simply create the React app and the Firebase project, and in the second step we're going to simply copy the configuration data from the Firebase and paste it in our React app, and in the third step we're going to simply use the 4 different methods for the different functionalities. The first one is create user with email and the password. It will simply create the user with the email and the password. And the second one is the sign in with the email and the password. It will simply sign in, or it will simply give us the login functionality with the email and the password. And third one is onAuthStateChanged. It will simply set the observer on the authentication state of our login or the logout functionality. And the last one is signOut, which will simply give you the logout functionality in our React app. So let's just build this project. So this is basically the demo of the authentication app that we are going to build using Firebase in React. So what is the functionality of this app? It's really simple. You can log in your account, and you can also create an account. Okay, and it will be connected with the Firebase. All right, so for example, if I go to my Firebase, okay, so now you can see here we have the 2 Gmail accounts that are registered in my Firebase project that is connected to our app. Okay, so if I just try to log in here, any of the email here, and click the login button, and now we are signed in as this email. All right, so I think there is an error. Alright, so we haven't logged in into our account because I have just written the wrong password. So let me just write it down again. Hopefully it will work now. Okay, so now we are logged in, and now we can see this in our console log. Okay, so now you can see here we are logged in and we get all the information of the user here. But if I just try to log in with the account that is not created or not registered in our Firebase, it will kind of give us the error that the account is not registered. If I just try to log in here, first of all, let me just sign it out and log in now. Okay, so there will be an error that the user is not found. So if I just try to go here in the network, and we're gonna find here in the request, in the response, that the email is not found. So it will only log into the accounts where it is registered. So if I just want to create an app, so you can simply create an app here. I'm gonna write down here the user at gmail.com. It's a dummy app actually. So give it a password and just simply sign up here, and it will also log in automatically. So if we just come up in our console log, now you can see here the account is successfully created and we have the details of the account. And if you just go back to our Firebase app, and if I just refresh this, now you would see we have the user email as well, a third email that we have registered. Okay, so it is working fine. So now we're gonna simply build this project from the scratch. Okay, all right, so first of all, let's just create the React app here. So we have to open up the terminal, and now we're gonna simply write the command to create the React app. It's gonna simply take a couple of minutes, depends on the speed of your internet, so we have to wait for it. Alright, so finally our little app is created thanks to my slow internet connection. Okay, so now I also have to install one more thing here because we are making a connection with the Firebase, so we have to install the Firebase for our app. So it's gonna be npm installed, and you're gonna write Firebase, and then you have to wait. Alright, so the Firebase is finally installed, and get started. Alright, so if you have already created the project on your Firebase, so it will come up here. But if you want to add a new project, as we are going to do here, so I'm gonna simply add up the new project, and it would be a 10 React. That's it. You have to be continue, and we don't want any Google analysis for our projects. Here we go. It will simply create our project. Alright, so our project is ready, and now we have to go to the authentication, since we are only doing the authentication with this project. Here getting started. Okay, so we just want to do the authentication on the basis of email and the password, so I'm gonna simply select the email and the password. That's it. So it would be email and the password only. Save. Okay, so authentication on the basis of email and password is enabled. Alright, so now we have to go to our project overview and we have to go inside the project settings. And from here, we have to click on this because we are actually setting up the authentication for our web app. So I'm gonna write down, click on it, and here you have to provide the name of your app, which is obviously the authentication. So I don't want the Firebase hosting right now, so I'm gonna simply register the app, and it will simply give us the instruction to how to install the Firebase and how can we use it in our project. So since we have already installed the Firebase, so I'm gonna simply copy this, and now we have to go back to our code, and here in the source file I have to create a file, firebase.js, and I will simply paste the configuration that we have got from here. All right, and now I'm gonna simply delete all the unnecessary file or the file that we are not gonna use in this project. So it would be setup, okay, and it would be this and this as well. So we are good to go. Delete this, and now we have to remove the dependencies of those files. Right, and I need to delete this as well since we don't need this. All right, we are good to go now. Okay, so now first of all we have to go to this link. So let me just copy this here. Okay, so this is the link. Okay, so now we want the authentication for the web, so I'm gonna click on here, and here, and we have all the things in our configuration file, but we have to add this method and also this as well. So I'll just simply write it down in our code. So we have to import get auth Firebase. All right, and now we also have to initialize the Firebase authentication. So I'm gonna simply copy this and paste it in our code. That's it. So it's gonna now work fine. So now we are good to go. We have to set up our application. So now let me just run the app first. So I'm gonna write down here hello from the Firebase. Okay, I just run the app. All right, so the app is working without any error. So now we just have to create the project that we have seen earlier. Okay, so first of all I have to create the sign in page or the component sign in. All right, we don't have the sign in. I have to create the components folder. All right, and inside that we will have sign in component. It's gonna be really simple. Alright, so I have to create a form here because we want to get the two inputs of the email and the password. So I have to create the two inputs here. Input of the email, and the second would be input of the password. Alright, let me just write down the placeholder. Enter your email, and in the value we're gonna write down the email, and same goes for the password. Placeholder, enter your password, and we have to input value, which would be the password. So it's gonna simply give us the error here, and now I have to export this component here and simply import our sign component. Okay, now it won't have an issue. Okay, so we have the two errors that the email and the password is not defined, so it's okay. We're gonna simply go to our sign in component, and we have to import the user state here from React, and now we have to create the user state for our email and the password as well, and the value would be empty string for now. And in the similar way we have to provide the password. All right, so we are actually good to go. Okay, so now we have to create two methods, handle email, and we have to set the parameter of the event, and it will simply use the set email function, and it will get the value from the event dot target dot value, since we are getting the value from our input field, so it has to be like this. And in a similar way we have to create a method for the password. It would be password. So let me just console log both of the values to check whether our input is actually working or not. Okay, so now we have to use both of these methods on onChange event. So it would be handle and this would be password. That's gonna work fine. So let's just go back to our app. Okay, so now you can see here we have the two input fields, enter your password and enter your email, as you can see here. And now I have to open up the inspect since we just want to see the values. So if I just write down here my name gmail.com. okay, so now you can see here our input is actually working, and for the password as well, yes, working for the password as well. So our input fields are perfectly working. So now we just simply have to add up the button here to log in into the account. It would be button, type would be submit, login. Okay, we have the button now. I have to add the heading here. Alright, so we have to simply sign up into our account using both of these inputs. Okay, so everything is working fine. Now we have to use the actual thing, the method of the Firebase to actually log in into our account. Okay, so now we have to use that method, but first of all I have to import it from the Firebase. So now here we have to import the two things. The first one would be the authentication. Actually we have to import this as well, so we have to write down the export. Now it will work fine. So just go back to our sign in page and I want to import this auth from the Firebase. Alright, and the second thing we have to import here is that we will simply use to log in into our account. Import sign in with email and the password from the firebase.auth. okay, that's gonna work fine. Alright, okay, so now we have to create one more method here which will simply submit our form details or the login details. So it would be const handle login. Alright, now first of all I have to write the prevent default, which will actually avoid the reload of the page whenever we submit the details of our form. Okay, so now we have to use the sign in with your email method, and here first of all you have to provide the auth which we have actually imported from our file. So you have to provide that value, and in the second one you have to provide the email. Third one, it has to be the password. Okay, since it will make the HTTP request, so we have to provide the then if the user credential, if we get the user credential, simply console log me that you are logging. If we have successfully logged into our account, it will simply console log us that you are logged in, and we can also console log our user credential as well that we're gonna get in response of our request. Okay, and we then also have to provide the catch if we get any sort of the error here, console log, and we're gonna have the error here. All right, so that's it. So I think we are good to go, but we have to use the method on submit event. It has to be the handle login. Okay, so now let's just go to our project and try this out whether it is working or not. So we have to open up the inspect as well, clean this, and if I just hit the login and open up the console log, okay, so now you can see here we actually have the error that the user is not found. And if we just go to the request here in the network, we will see in the response we have is email is not found. Since we haven't registered any account to our app, that's why we're getting email is not found. It simply means that our Firebase connection is working. Okay, so now we have to go back to our page and we have to create the sign up component. Okay, that's gonna be simply just like our login component, but we have to do some modifications in it. So in the components, we're gonna create sign up.jsx. all right, and we're gonna simply copy paste our sign in code to our sign up component. So here we actually need to change a couple of things only. The first one would be the method. So it would be simply the create user with the email and the password method. We have to import this method, and we are good with these user states. Okay, so we are good with these user state variable and the methods. Okay, handle email is gonna work fine. Okay, so we are good with this, but we have to change the method here. It would be create All right, so we have to write down here your account is registered. So I think we are good to go here. Okay, so we have to do one more thing here to set our email input and the password input empty after we have clicked on the submit button or the login or the sign up button. Set password. All right, it would be simply register here, copy this, change the name of the method, that will work fine. So I have to export this since it's sign up, and we have to import this in our app.js. So it would be all right, so we have to import this as well. Now it's gonna work fine. Okay, so we have the error, sign up is not defined. Okay, and we have to change the name as well. Okay, so now it's gonna work fine. All right, so we have no error. So let's go to the browser, and now you can see here we have the sign up your account and we also have the sign in your account. So now we just simply have to test our code. So I have to open up the console log and I want to register an email. So I want to simply register user@gmail.com. I think that will work fine. So if you just check our console log, we have nothing in it. Actually in the network as well, it's bad, but when I hit the register, it will have the request. Okay, so now you can simply see here we have the request. We have actually had the successful request that the user is created in here. Okay, so now you can simply see here in the console log that our account is simply registered. So if we just go back to our Firebase app, and here we would have our user. Okay, so if we just go back to the user, and you can see here the user@gmail.com is registered. So I think we have created an account, and now we have to check our login functionality whether it is working or not. So open up the console log, and if I just try to log in with the Gmail that we have registered, okay, and hit the login, open up the console log. Okay, so now you can see here the user is logged in. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so this is how you can simply create the user in the Firebase and as well as log in into your account. Okay, but now I also want to have the logout functionality. Okay, so for that we're gonna have to create one more component here. So that would be the profile .jsx. We have to create the profile and we need to export this default profile. Okay, but before that we have to import a couple of things here. The first would be React hooks, which would be the use state and as well as the use effect. Okay, and we also have to import the auth from our firebase.js. Okay, so since we just want to log out, so for that we have to use the two methods here, onAuthStateChanged, and we have to write down the sign out. Okay, so that will work fine. Okay, so why we use the onAuthStateChanged, it will simply add the observer for the changes to the user sign in state, okay, whether it is login or not. All right, and the sign out function will simply sign out the current user. That's it. So I have to create a variable for the user state, auth user, and set auth user, and we're gonna set the default value to the null actually. And now we have to use the use effect. So if you don't know how we use the use effect, you can explore it on the Google. All right, so I want to write down a variable which would be the response, and we have to use the onAuth function here, and it will simply check the status of our sign in state. Okay, to use the auth, and we have to use the callback function user. So if we have the user or if the user is logged in, we will simply set the value of auth user. Okay, otherwise if we don't have any value, we would set the auth user with null. That's it. So just save this, and I want to format this code. Okay, good to go. Format this as well. So I just forgot to format this. It would be okay, good to go. Sign up as well. All right. Okay, so we have the profile, we have the logic here. And here what we need to do, we want to add no dependency for the use effect. Alright, so if you don't know about the use effect, let me just give you a brief description of that. Use effect is actually the React hook that allows you to run the side effect in your functional component. Okay, so the example of the use state could be whether we are fetching the data whenever the page is loaded, or want to subscribe to the event or unsubscribe to the event. Alright, so something like that. Okay, so now what we want to do here, in the use effect we also have the cleanup function. Cleanup function is actually the function that would call itself whenever the component is unmounted. So unmounting is simply the process of removing the component instance. Okay, and now we're gonna simply write down the cleanup function, and here I'm gonna simply write the response to nothing. Okay, so this would simply remove the listener from our use effect. Okay, alright, so I think we are good to go here. I'm gonna write down the return, and here I'm gonna go with the div element. Here we will simply do the conditional rendering. If we have auth user, then I want to have the paragraph that was said. Okay, and I also want to add the button for the logout, that would be log out. Alright, otherwise if nobody log into their account, we're gonna simply have the paragraph nobody is logged. I think we are good to go here. We have to go back to our app.js and import the profile, and I have to put it here. Okay, so that would work fine. Okay, so we have the error, so that is, and okay, so that is inside the profile.jsx, so we have to go here. Alright, so I have to put this inside the profile component. That's working fine. Okay, so let's just go to our browser. Okay, so now you can see here nobody is logged in, and we have to go to our console log, and I want to log in some account here. That would be user@gmail.com. I have to put the password here. Alright, so let's just log in. We have the object that we are actually signed up in our account, but there is no change in the profile US, so we just have to check our profile.jsx. Okay, so it's not auth user, I have made the mistake, is auth user, so it will work now. Alright, so if I just go back to our browser, and now you can see here we are signed in. Okay, so I also want to show the email here, so we're gonna go back to our code, and I'm gonna write down the backlashes. Okay, and now we have to get the email here, so I'm gonna write down auth user. Okay, so it's gonna work fine now. Go back to our browser and we would have our email. Okay, so now you can see here we have our email, but now we can see here that we haven't done any functionality on the logout function, so we just have to add the logout functionality here. So let's just do it quickly. All you need to do here, you're gonna write down the signOut function that we have imported, and then you have to write the auth. Okay, that's it. And then we have to add the then function in response to the response of the request. So if we have the successful request, we will simply have the console log that you are logged out, and if we have any kind of error, it would simply show us the error. Alright, that's it. We have to use this in our button, so it's gonna be on click logout. Alright, so that's it. So now we have to go back to our browser and check whether this is working or not. So open up the console log. So I just want to log out from the user account, so let's just hit the logout, and now you can see here nobody is logged in. And if you go back to our console log, now you can see here you are logged out. So we just completed our little project, and I want to check up this functionality. So I want to add the user of my name. Okay, register, and now we have to go to our Firebase app, refresh this, and now you can see here we have the Fahad@gmail.com user, so it's working now. Let's just check the login here as well. Log out this, and I want to do this login. Okay, so it's working. Okay, so this is how we can simply do the authentication in the React app using the Firebase, and this is it, and this is all for this video. If you really find this useful, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and we're gonna meet up in the next project.